Thank you for reminding. Okay.
Whatever I can do to help.
Yeah.
So.
Sadashiva Samarambam Shankarasha Yamajamam Asmadasharya Paryantam Devara Param
Ishvaram Guratmeti Murti Veda Yamada Yadehaya
Dakshinamurchaya Namaha
Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Kambojaram Govindam
Dayanandam
Satguru
Pranatosmaham Om Shanti 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 Om. Namaste, Namaskara, and welcome. We begin with our Q&A session, a follow-up from our seminar, Carbondale on Vivekachudamani. So we begin with a question, a live question from Karen. Karen, can you repeat your question very briefly so that everybody will know where we are coming from?
Yes, my question comes from the end of verse 3. To fight against karma requires courage. And my question is, can we change our karma? That's how it sounds to me in this verse.
Yeah. So when we say the word karma, it literally means actions. But when we bring an action, into the field, into the Dharma field as a response, an action does not stop in an action itself. It has its ripples, it has its repercussions, it has his consequence, its effect. So there are different layers. It's a very nuanced kind of topic, karma, because there are different levels of karmas. But generally speaking, when we act, we are presenting our action. We call that action, that karma, we call it agami karma. And this agami karma, it remains suspended, until it somehow combines and it fructifies as the results of which are also relate to that action/attitude of mind. Okay, it keeps building a fructification of results in due time. The time is a complex equation. We never know when a karma is going to fructify and what kind of combination among so many other of my own karmas, several other karmas, it's going to join together to bring about my prarabdha karma, my life's circumstance and situation. The only thing we know is that this equation is so complex, but yet it's very precise in the sense that whatsoever Ishvara or life brings to us as my prarabdha karma is exactly what we deserve. It's not necessarily what we desire, but it's exactly what we deserve. So how are we going to change our karma? We cannot change the karmas that are already in the field suspended as sanchita karmas. Sanchita karmas are the karmas that are suspended. There's all these actions and actions. Some of these actions go back to previous births, and they are still suspended, waiting for fructification, because the system is very complex. It's huge, it's vast, it's extensive, okay? So we have these sanchitas that gradually they fructify as prarabdha karma. Once the action is out, we have no way to call it back. We cannot say, oh, I'm sorry, let me delete this karma. No, we cannot delete a karma the same way we delete a message, We cannot. So once into the field, there is a very nice metaphor that the hunter is a spiritual person and he is in the woods and he sees a beautiful deer and he is he has to bring food. You know already this one?
Yes.
Now it's a beautiful one. So he pulls his ark and then he releases it. When he releases, he realized that it's not really a deer, but it is a cow, you know? So, and then what he's gonna do? There is nothing that can be done because it was released already into the field, okay? So we keep bringing our actions into the field and these actions keep fructifying as my Prarabdha karma. When they're in the field, I'm gonna have to deal with whatsoever the result will be. But how I'm going to fight my karma? I'm going to fight my karma and at the very source of karma, okay? Because the karma, it's a cycle. It's a cycle called vasana, desire, okay? And then action. And this action is going to reinforce a previous vasana, or it's going to weaken a previous vasana, okay? So it's vasana, a desire to think, feel, and act in a certain way, and then action. So if I act out in conformity with this vasana, I have a desire to act, then I act. If I do follow this trend, I will be reinforcing the same vasana. But between the life presents itself to me, and I have a stimulus coming to me. Between this stimulus and my response, there is a space. And in this space, I have what we call free will. So in that moment, the moment that I'm about to present my action into the field, in that very moment, I have the power to say no to my vasana, okay? So then and only then we can begin changing our karma, okay? Why? Because my action now is not going to be presented to reinforce that vasana, but it's going to be presented to weaken that vasana. There is a message here there was a message from Roots. At Roots, I'm not seeing anybody here. Roots? Let me see. From Roots to everyone, it seems the key word is courage. What is your response to the result of our karma? The use of free will. I don't know why we're getting this message from Roots.
I think she's just commenting on what you were saying.
Yeah, but why she's not with us here?
That happened to her last time. There must be something with her system.
That she's not showing up.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have, maybe she's just calling. No, she didn't just call in, but I don't know why.
Okay.
But if Ruth can hear us and she can hear me,
Yeah.
then she can troubleshoot with me sometime
Later on.
Okay. Okay.
So, I offer Ruth to buy lunch.
So in that very moment that we are about to respond to a stimulus, there we have the possibility to exercise our free will in a way that we can go against that tendency, against that vasana, against that habit, that addiction, that predisposition, propensity of just repeating the same response again and again out of sheer habit,
And that's where you say, so that's where that space is, that you have to catch it right then in that little space before you react in the old phase.
Yeah, because life happens very fast, as we know, and we don't have much of that time. So gradually we need to start changing those vasanas in a way that at certain point my causal body is crowded by good vasanas. Which are good vasanas? The vasanas based on the understanding of the true nature of reality, the nature of the self, the nature of the manifest, the nature of Ishwar. So all this spiritual knowledge, to the extent that it starts occupying our causal body, our subconscious mind, our unconscious mind, then and only then we can respond spontaneously to the stimuli coming from the field. And our response is going to be a response to that that naturally is aligned with spiritual knowledge. It's nature aligned with Dharma and self-knowledge, you understand? But in the beginning, we need to use our power of vigilance, and we have to keep confronting to the best of our possibilities those tendencies which are going to be self-defeating, self-insulting, self-diminishing to my own self as consciousness. You understand?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's something that seems like it takes a lot of practice because the knee-jerk response is so strong. I guess that's where the courage comes in. You've got to, well,
Yes.
recognize it, of course, first, and then be able
and like everything in the world, at the beginning, everything takes a lot of effort. But once that knowledge is well established, and then naturally you begin answering, responding to the field from that platform of knowledge, because any work we do in the office or in the factory or in our own atelier or in our own profession or anything, every time we change a profession, so much trouble because I have to learn. Everything we do not know seems to be so difficult. But once we know, we do it almost like spontaneously or impulsively. We can do things like, without paying almost no attention, like driving a car. But just try to drive the car for the first time in your life without giving it full attention, So with time, we build these good vasanas based on wisdom. And these vasanas are going to be providing us with response to the stimuli coming from the field. And this is going to be natural to respond appropriately, wisely, timely, and dharmically, and so on. You understand? Why? Because the response, they better come easily and directly from the causal body, because we cannot press this pause button again and again. Every time we relate to someone, we say, oh, just a moment, let me process this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then every time I run and then I go to the toilet and then I just, try to calm down. And no, we don't have that opportunity. So mistakes happen, and they must happen. And with time, to the extent, everything is knowledge. Everything is based on knowledge on whatsoever level, as the example of any profession we develop, So the more we have knowledge of something, the easier it is for us to perform that kind of activity or profession, So the same is with the knowledge in reference to our true nature or true identity. The more we know who we are, the more certainty of knowledge we have, the more from that angle, from that platform, awareness, I respond from that, from this knowledge that is well clear and firm and well retained in my causal body, So this knowledge has to grow roots in the causal body so that we can live from there spontaneously.
Right.
Having to do discipline all the time, Discipline is just at the beginning.
Oh, so then once you become better at it, it doesn't take as much discipline because it's easier for you. It's more rooted in, like you say, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the
Then
more
you get more, more comfort, more you reside in the self-knowledge, the knowledge of the self. Then you come from that perspective. When a Vasana presents or something, your free will is going to come from that perspective, perhaps. That's what I'm thinking. you know, I was just thinking is like you probably always go through the cycle, but the question is whether or not you're, you know, it becomes easier to go through the cycle because when you're doing the Vasana, and it could be a bad Vasana or a good Vasana, but it still generates a desire. But then the free will comes into place what action you take, and when it's a good Vasana, and then it's easy. So the more good Vasanas that are manifesting, wouldn't it make sense? Would that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Let me present it from a different angle, more practical. We have certain vasanas, and certain vasanas we know that they are not good vasanas. So when we come to Vedanta, a good vasana is not just a vasana of something, a desire or intent or tendency or desire of something that I like greatly. When we talk of good vasanas, we talk about vasanas that are dharmic, sattvic, okay? It comes from sattva. It's more like in the spirit of giving and less in the spirit of taking, okay? And it's a sattvic, and it is totally in harmony with dharma, meaning to say it's for the benefit of the overall environment, okay? It's not only for me. Okay, so this is the nature of a good vasana. Okay, and it should not be binding, because a binding vasana, even if it's a dharmic vasana, but if it's binding, for example, some people they may have good vasanas about helping the poor and doing charitable work and so on. But if that is a binding vasana, it's not necessarily good, especially for the person who is doing that kind of karma. Why? Because a binding vasana is a vasana that you depend upon acting out that vasana. Otherwise, you feel small, incomplete, and dissatisfied. So you need that vasana. You need that action. You need to engage that vasana. So then the vasana, even it's a vasana for the good of others, it's a bad vasana. Why? Because it's binding. You are slaved by that vasana. You are not the master of that vasana. The vasana is your master. It pushes you around. It compels you of doing things because it got you to believe that unless you do certain actions, you are not okay about yourself. You are not good with yourself. You are not satisfied with yourself. You are not complete, and so on. So a good vasana in Vedanta is a vasana that is genuine, it's moderate, it's dharmic. It's a vasana that is genuine. It's a vasana that's more genuine.
Genuine.
Oh, genuine.
Genuine. So it's genuine, it's moderate, it's dharmic, and it is non-binding, which is the definition of sattvic vasana or sattvic tendency. So what is a genuine vasana? So we say, oh, I need something here and I really need it. But if we really investigate, do we really need a new car? Do we really need a new model of that Toyota? Okay. Is it a genuine desire, genuine vasana, genuine, No, it's not genuine. So you don't need, you can as well be very happy and satisfied driving your old car to your work, especially if your car is only 3-5 years old. But it's not a genuine vasana, changing the car every 5 years or 3 years, okay? It's not. But on the other hand, if a mother, for example, has a strong vasana to protect her child, or try to see to he's healthy and to keep him healthy and give him good education and so on, we would say that that is an absolute genuine desire, because the dharma of a mother is to see that her child or children have good health, good food, good education, right? So this is a genuine kind of desire. Huh? And but even if a desire is genuine, it needs to be moderate, because if it becomes an obsession, if we want something and we are obsessed about that, it's a problem not only for the person who has this obsessive vasana, but the person who is victim of some of those actions. For example, a child with a mother that is over concerned, over protective, you know. So we know those examples from our kind of psychological world, you know. So those mothers that want to protect the children to the extent that they suffocate and do not give room for the children to grow on their own, you know, to learn on their own. So it has to be moderate. So, and it has to be a desire that is not only to satisfy something for myself, it's not only self-centered, but it's a desire that brings into the equation the needs of the total, the interests of the field. So that is one of the most important, you know, aspects of a vasana. It's a vasana that brings into the equation Ishwara as the total. Okay. So when we have a vasana like that, and then we can say, this is really a good vasana. So a good vasana is a vasana that is conducive to my spiritual elevation, to my spiritual growth. It helps me just to keep growing, 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 growing. So this is a good vasana.
And am I hearing it right then when you say like moderate, a moderate one? Is that really about allowing the fact that other people have karma? Like you talked about the mother and child. Well, the mother has karma, and but the child has karma too.
Yeah.
And so moderate would be, in my mind, is being moderate, having an understanding that your karma is your karma, but it interacts and the results come from others' karma, from the situational karma, from the universe, you know, karma in the universe too, that we cannot, you know, absolutely control the results.
As well, that can be said. Another thing that can be said about moderation is like in the lines of what Karen shared with us last time. She has a vasana for coffee. And 1 cup of a coffee is a good vasana. It's a moderation. It gives us a kickstart in the morning. But if one drinks 5 cups in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, and then one went far beyond moderation, and what we need to understand about those vasanas is that some vasanas, we know when the vasana has a very negative impact on our lives, when the vasana is going to drag us down, you know, it's going to make us to regress or to decline spiritually. We know those vasanas. Those are the vasanas that we feel sometimes powerless against them. But and that's what the knowledge piece that I was mentioning before comes in, because the more we understand the knowledge, you see, spiritual knowledge is not only the knowledge I am Brahman. The spiritual knowledge is the knowledge about Nitya and the relationship with the jiva, with its causal body, which is related to Ishwara, the warehouse of all vasanas. Yeah? The jiva in relationship with Ishwara and in relationship with the Dharma field. So if I do certain actions compulsively, impulsively, and I notice that I'm responding automatically, mechanically, out of habit, and some of these habits became addictions, and I know that this addiction not only makes me slaved, but this addiction does very bad to my physical body, my mind, my emotions. It makes me all stressed out. My adrenals goes, you know, off the roof. So we know that certain actions they bring about, they hurt us on all our three bodies, you know, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body. So once we know, the more knowledge we have about that tendency, that pattern, the more we understand, the more we connect the dots, okay? The more I understand that I'm hurting myself, the greater my understanding, bigger and stronger is my willpower to confront and face it, you know, and stop it and filter it, and prevent it from pushing me around. Why? Because I have developed a greater understanding of the mechanics behind of that compulsiveness, you understand? So everything is about knowledge, understanding. The more knowledge we have on different levels, you know, this is also a kind of a spiritual knowledge, to have the knowledge of those vasanas that are obstructions to my spiritual growth, obstructions to the development of my qualifications and so on. Once I understand that those vasanas are working against my ultimate goal, which is moksha, and then that vision is more and more clear, and then greater is my willpower to say no to that karma, to that vasana. Okay? So this is the mechanism. Vasana, desire, tendency to think and act, and then if we act or we just say no, Ishvara, and then like Ramji says, you just give the finger to Ishvara, say enough of this vasana, Ishvara. I'm providing you with new action here so that I want to be governed and driven by good vasanas. Vasanas, you know, with tendency for contemplation, peace of mind, study of the scripture, meditation, and so on, you know. So the vasanas, those are the tendencies. I want to develop spiritual tendencies that bring about spiritual growth.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, yeah.
It helps?
Yes,
Yeah, sounds good. And it looks like Carolyn joined us too.
Oh, why we don't see her? Oh, let me see.
Carolyn, and here she is.
Hey, she finally showed up. Oh, now everybody else. Hey.
Hi, Carolyn.
Carol, did you find a home by now?
She's another voice on.
I'm muting her. Wow, you found a nice home, huh?
If I can unmute, can you hear me?
Now, yes, I did unmute you.
We are on the beach phase of our trip, although we're heading back to Colorado on Saturday.
I see. And where are you now? Mexico?
St. Thomas. It's
See.
pretty good.
Yes, it looks good. Better than the snow.
Well, we're going to the snow on Saturday.
I know. I mean, there's a time for everything in life, huh?
Yes.
It's snowing here now, so.
We're going to be there on Saturday.
Okay, now.
Where? In Colorado?
Yeah, we're coming back. Yes.
Good.
Yes, it's good to have you back. We need
Thank you.
we need you, and we need our sangha. So we are trying to develop a sangha, Carbondale sangha, for our meetings.
I will do my best. Once I figure it out, then I'm much better. The first time is always hard for me.
Yeah. Okay. Okie dokie. Okay, shall we move to our next question?
Sure.
You want to say, sweet?
Are you going to do it?
Do you want to ask a question? Do you have one? Itar has one.
Okay, if
Yeah.
our discrimination is always about duality, that's number one. Number two is, for me, the non-separation of ignorance and knowledge, that it cannot be wiped out. It's part of the same thing. So to me, that seems like almost a duality.
Okay.
If the knowledge sort of contains the ignorance, your knowledge is knowledgeable about ignorance.
Yeah.
You can never get rid of the ignorance then.
Well, so the first part of your question, I want to understand it better. You said that discrimination is about duality, right?
Yes, that's how I approach everything. Is it or isn't? And that gives me my first step.
Yeah, yeah. So there is always a duality. There was always at least two things to choose from. That's what you're trying to point out, right?
Okay.
Is that what you're trying to point? I discriminate between what I like, what I don't like is the most basic discrimination every one of us
But
exercises.
they're not separate.
What I
They're
like,
part
what I
of
don't.
each other.
Yes, I mean, in this dualistic, pluralistic universe, it's one organism, you know, it appears as several parts, but it's all parts.
Right.
It's all the same. It's called meteor. Fundamentally, we know that this is all the play of the three gunas and the five elements, but everything resolves itself into consciousness. So in meteor, duality and plurality is the law, is the name of the game. Nietzsche is made of diversity of names and forms, okay? We cannot deny that. But the intrinsic nature of Nietzsche is Satya. Therefore, everything resolves itself into consciousness, into Satya, okay? So now, why we need to discriminate between Dharma and Adharma? When we become spiritual beings, we are no longer interested in discriminate between what I like and what I don't like. Okay? In the beginning, all our concern is about what I want and what I don't want. All my effort is about attracting or gaining what I want or avoiding what I don't want. When we become spiritual people, the first stage to understand Dharma and Karma, this incredible law called the causality or karmic laws that governs the entire human experience, okay? So when we become spiritual beings, we need to begin discriminating between what is Dharma and what is Adharma. From the ultimate truth, you can say it's all the same because everything is just consciousness. This duality is only appearance, but there isn't duality at all. We can always say that. But those premature assertions may deprive us from the possibility to purify our minds by the means of discriminating what is dharmic and what is adharmic. Although we know that from the absolute truth, there is no such thing as Dharma and Adharma, okay? All of that in the end has to be discarded, has to be rejected. But if we do that prematurely and we resolve everything into consciousness, and then we may make a mistake, and we see it left and right in the spiritual world. All the people in the more the neo-Advaita spiritual arena, they do that, you know, they do this shortcut, shortcut, you know, the shortcut, we call it spiritual bypass. They bypass Mithya, they bypass karma and dharma. They don't want to hear about that. They bypass the need for the development of qualifications. They hate all of these things. Those are usually people highly rajasic and with no patience to go through the base of the teaching so that the mind can be repaired, refined, and purified. So in a way that you can understand that everything resolves as consciousness and consciousness alone. Okay? So that is the main risk. So this dualistic universe is a field, is a school, it's a field that provides all of us with the possibility to exercise our discrimination, okay? Our discrimination, and in this process of exercise my discrimination based on Dharma and Adharma, what is fair, what's not fair, what's just and what is unjust, okay? What is for the benefit of everyone and what is a self-centered desire. So this exercise on discrimination is going to elevate and purify and refine my mind. So once our mind is refined, and then we do less and less discrimination from the standpoint of Dharma and Adharma, and we do more and more discrimination from the standpoint of Satya and Nitya.
Okay.
That we do on a later stage when the mind is so subtle, so refined that it can just stay most of the time discriminating, rejecting Satya from Mithya. So anything that appears, stays, change, and disappear is Mithya. It has a certain existence, but its existence is what we call apparent. It's not real. It's an apparent reality. So, but this discrimination, this final discrimination, we have to be careful, because if we do it prematurely, if we do it out of anxiety or lack of patience, okay, and then we may throw the baby with the bathwater, as the expression says, okay, because the baby needs to grow. It has to purify and grow gradually by the exercise. And this exercise of discrimination is going to require this constant interaction with the field. It does not help to escape to the ashram or to the caves or to the Himalayas or to the forest, because the field is a school that helps us to refine the mind. You understand? It's not real. The only reality is the seer, it's the knower, it's consciousness. But we need this transaction with the field as a means to prepare, purify, refine the mind, so that it can really understand, assimilate, and retain these final teachings of Vedanta. Does it make sense, my dear?
Yes, thank you. Very good.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
Well, it was interesting because you talk about the shortcut, and you just want to take a shortcut. You want to go right to
Yeah.
that that knowledge of the self, and we just reside in that, and you go there, and will it stick? If you take the shortcut, will it stick? Will it, or will you regress? Or will you go backwards? Right. And so I just had a discussion with somebody the other day who wants to take plant medicine, and it's like a shortcut to another state to get to bliss. But the thing of it is, we talked about this, is that eventually it wears off, and where do you end up? You end up right back where you were, and you haven't really advanced. And all you do is look for the next hit, for the next trip, and so he's just on a series of trips, and that kind of dovetails into my question, which is, when you're talking with somebody like that, and you're coming at it from this perspective, you know it's a spiritual shortcut that they're trying to take. Do you keep your mouth shut, or do you try and offer another opinion, or and talk about the Vedanta?
Okay, let's move into that question. This is a question from Dave. I'm sure that I'm happy that you are sharing, you as the originator of this question. So he has a good question. He says, how does one share their Vedanta knowledge or the Vedanta path or journey with a loved one? So just imagine the trouble of Carol now having to share Vedanta knowledge with her entire family. And what if her family does not want to hear that, So how does one share the Vedanta journey with a loved one? We share to the degree that the beloved one really asks you to share. So otherwise, we don't need to share. We better, instead of share, we should share up,
But you can't share because you have to reflect the Vedanta teaching. And that's silent almost. That's in your body language. That's how you relate to the
absolutely
very often.
the best sharing is just to live the truth, to show that something has impacted you and that somehow you transformed, you are improved, you know, you are more calm, more peaceful, more loving, more generous, more a wiser person, and so on. So we demonstrate the benefits of Vedanta, not by lecturing people, especially who did not ask to be lectured, you know. So how does one share the Vedanta journey with a loved one? We don't share. We wait and see. Or if you want to share, you just share your peace, your love, your generosity, your kindness, you know, your wisdom.
Your embodiment.
Yes, your embodiment of the knowledge. Beautiful. Perfect. So that's the best way to share.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you can't expect that, and they're not necessarily going to see or, you know, and know that either. I mean, you can be super kind, but if people don't recognize that,
No, I mean, if people,
Nothing, it's the embodiment, period.
yeah, and
if people do not have a sensitive mind, if their mind is too dense, is too raw, they don't even recognize your spiritual improvement, your spiritual elevation. They don't know they are too gross, they're too dense, you know. So
yeah.
only people who are more refined, they are going to sense that something happened to you, and that is the person that may be a candidate to this association with the scriptural knowledge, you know. We to attract people who are absolutely dense and gross and without any sense.
And then I see their vasanas playing into it in the way that they're maybe hypersensitive to feeling like they're being told what to do or something. Yeah.
Your way is the best way.
Right.
That's how people always think their way is the best way.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Christianity, you see that all the time. So that's not a good candidate.
Yeah.
If they haven't been refined in their mind that there are other spiritual avenues.
Okay,
So-
I want to move on to the second part of Dave's question. What is the role of community? Hello.
Hi.
Now we can hear you. Okay, so the second part of Dave's question is, what is the role of community when Vedanta is the means of self-knowledge? So what's the role of community? I think I think Dave is trying to ask, so what is the value of having a community of like-minded people working for moksha, you know? When the goal is self-knowledge and moksha, what is the value? What's the role of community? So the community it gives the support, you know. It's
This is the example.
yeah, and
What progress they are at.
yes, and it's a sangha of like-minded people serves to support one another because we are swimming against the currency, you know. The current is huge. There are 7+ billion samsaris just swimming in the direction of trying to gain objects and avoid objects, okay? There is it's very rare to find an individual, a jiva, working for freedom from this need, dependence on objects. It's very rare. So we swim alone. Therefore, to have a small group of like-minded people is of great support so that we get the inspiration, the encouragement, okay, the power, because many times in our lives, we say, no, it's too much. The current here is too strong. I'm just going to let go and let it be. And I'm going to go with it, okay? So those thoughts cross our minds several times. It did cross my mind several times. A few times I tried to quit the whole thing about searching for moksha or enlightenment, okay? Because there are a lot of pressures coming from all corners, all sides, families and friends and you know, and you end up being alone. When you get to Vedanta, you are in a spot that you better be strong, because there are not many people interested in Vedanta. Vedanta has very little appeal. Vedanta is radical. Vedanta is for the very rare, brave souls. And there are so few brave souls in the world that you're going to be walking the pathless paths most of the time on your own. Associate to the scriptures, to a teacher that you trust, and a very few friends. That's the nature of a Vedanta Sangha, you know. But if you go to another kind of Sangha, spiritual Sangha, where there is a lot of other notions being propagated, you know, experiential notions, or we can define it as a spiritual materialism. When you go into those sanghas that somehow gives a lot of values to this experience, that experience, attracting or developing certain mental powers, and all of these things, or psychological work, becoming a better jiva. If you go into those kind of sanghas, you're gonna feel very cozy. Why? Because there will be millions of people there. The spiritual world is like a pyramid. In the bottom, there are millions and millions of people. But the more you climb, the more you go up, the more you refine your mind, you're going to find yourself among less and less people, less and less people. Then in the end, the final step you have to do alone. You know, you have to do your own self-inquiry, and you are absolutely alone. And once you understand, once you remove your ignorance, you remove your ignorance alone. You cannot help anybody to do that. It's an inner work. It's a work that the jiva does for himself, with himself. But in its way, it can and better be associated with some like-minded people so that it can get strong to cross this ocean called samsara, you know?
Mhm.
But when you're on the top, then you have nobody to share that with.
Well, what happens when you're in the top there, and once it is knowledge, this is all metaphorical, of course, this is analogy. Once you know who you are, once you no longer need and depend on the world of objects and people, places, circumstances, situations, when you are there, you become more graceful, wiser, more friendly, and so on. And then people from below you start coming asking you, hey, what's going on here? So tell me, can you help me out? I want to, you know, I want to be free, and I want to be wiser, and so on. So once you come to that full, firm, and clear recognition, only then we can effectively help other people, you know, people on the same path towards moksha.
Can you hear me or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, when Dave was talking about somebody who might be seeking plant medicine, which I run into lots of people doing that as well, that in that way, for that consciousness, for me, it makes sense that it is a divine expression on their level to make the connection, because the gross body is so strong. They need to have some kind of gross body experience of what can be, not regularly, but to me, it's a way for some to make a connection that they can't make.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
We don't go there. I don't touch the subject. I don't consider that spirituality at all. Okay, and it's irrelevant from my standpoint. It's like Dave said. It's just an object of experience of any other. And so
right.
People are attracted to what they're attracted. When we become spiritual, you see, when your mind, due to a lot of meditation, not using of certain drugs, regardless of being of natural source or synthetic drug, without use any drug, but your own effort, if you begin purifying your mind and developing more and more sattva, you will run into a problem. The problem is what we call sattva. Sattva is like a chain. It's like a golden chain, but a golden chain is yet a chain. Okay, it binds you. Okay, so how it binds you? By two ways. One is that the sattvic mind is extremely interested in knowledge, and it has a facility to assimilate knowledge. So you become dependent on more and more knowledge as a means to complete yourself. You believe that the thing here is more knowledge, more knowledge, more knowledge, and it's not. You understand? You need to know that by which knowing, you don't need to know everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the problems of developing a pure mind, a sattvic mind. The other problem with a pure mind, which would be a more better example of what you are trying to say, is a sattvic mind is going to produce a lot of nice, beautiful, and mystical, esoteric states of consciousness, states of mind, okay? So a pure mind is going to be producing all these beautiful states of peace, love, expansion of consciousness, oneness, all kinds of bliss, ecstasy. And then that's another prism. It's another, this is the spiritual materialism that Ruth is talking about here. So people get caught up. They get as tied up to this object as they were tied up 30 years ago to their house, their spouse, and their cars, you know? Now they're tied up to these states of mind. And a state of mind is an object such as any gross object, okay? It's just subtle, but subtle is...
It's great, I love that.
Yeah. Okay, we have one more question here. Absence of longing for changing things from the body to the spiritual taste of mind is dispassion. Is connected to this point that we have been unfolding now. Absence of longing for changing things. What is changing things? Objects. Objects is that which is something other than you, the conscious subject principle. An object is something other than you, the conscious subject principle. And an object, by definition, is something that comes, it stays, but while it stays, it modifies from a moment to moment, and then at a certain point, it disappears. Okay, this is an object. Now, absence of longing for changing things. So who is going to have absence for changing things? Only a highly mature individual, only a highly qualified sadhaka or Vedanta is going to have this absence of longing for changing things, absence of longing for objects, okay? From the body, this is the most intimate, gross objects that we deal with, okay? Our physical body. We get really caught up. We identify, we get attachment to the body. We believe it to be the body, but the body is not real because it is an object that appears within the scope of my conscious awareness, and it changes from time to time and it disappears. And before, and it's not exists in the future, and it's not even exist all through 24 hours, because when I go to deep sleep, the body disappears, as an example. So from the body to spiritual states of mind. So only the person who has longing for changing objects has what we call dispassion, okay? So, and then the commentary of truth is, in Faust commentary, the emphasis is on objects and body. I would like the discussion to center around the absence of longing for spiritual states of mind. So she made a stretch to bring her to the point of our discussion now, which was those highly mystical, esoteric, spiritual states of mind are just objects of experience. You know, they are as unreal or as apparently real, you know, than as any gross physical object. So she says, I ask this because it seems that longing for spiritual states of mind seem to hold many seekers in trail. Yes, and it's exactly what I just spoke. Okay, become spiritual, and then they get bound, they get attached to sattva, and sattva, like all other gunas, it can be bounding power, bounding, deceiving power. Okay, it's going to bound us by making us attached to these spiritual states of mind. Okay, that is not moksha. That is just how you say boundary. Boundary. No, there is another word.
Well, you just say it becomes binding.
Yeah, it's
again.
binding.
It gets back to the binding again, right? So, yeah, a sattvic state can become binding.
Yes, for those two reasons, sattva is responsible for this tendency to want to know, knowledge, okay, clarity of mind, and the ability to assimilate, extract and assimilate knowledge by all means, okay, all kinds of knowledge. And there is a certain state of mind. A sattvic mind has this propensity for certain subtle mental states or experience.
Yeah.
And people identify with those things.
Yeah, and if you stay there, but with Vedanta, we're talking about moksha, which is really beyond sattva.
Yeah, I mean, we explained that the most important intermediary goal of every Vedantine is to cultivate, develop, and maintain a sattvic mind. Okay, so we need to develop a sattvic mind, but we make it very clear that a sattvic mind is a mean to a certain end. It's not an end by itself. Okay, we need a sattvic mind.
Yeah, it's like fertilizing the soil, right? So.
Yeah, you have to prepare your mind so the seeds of self-inquiry can sprout and fructify as a hard and fast self-knowledge.
Okay. We're about finished. Can we talk about the next meeting? Can we move on to that, Erlinda, or do you have something you want to say at the end here?
Well, I want to say that I'm open and available to do whatsoever you guys want to do, and according to your schedule. I know that some of you are very busy, some of you are less busy. Okay, but the best way to build and grow a Vedanta Sangha is to keep it, on a frequency. So I think we should look into doing it every week. Okay. And in the beginning, it may be a little bit difficult, but that's the way we develop a value for self-inquiry. I mean, we love things. When we love something, we don't feel that I need to make any effort to be with that thing. Okay, it's not a sacrifice because I love something. No? But we don't love things unless we know something. Have you ever really liked something that you don't know? No, we need to know. So the first step is to get to know Vedanta, so that we can develop a certain degree of love, appreciation for this means of self-knowledge. Okay, and then as I do that, and then and only then my value, my vasana, my desire for self-knowledge begins growing to a point, and then it comes to a point that is no longer it does not no longer requires effort. It becomes effortless. Okay, that's the momentum that it takes, and then after a certain point, it's like a snowball. It takes a momentum, and then it moves by itself, and it becomes bigger and bigger because you gave it an initial push. So in order to give it an initial push, I think we should consider doing it weekly rather than once in a while.
Well,
Go ahead.
what I was going to say is, I don't know what you guys think, but perhaps since you're going to be gone for the month of January, Orlando, what if we do meet
We could
next
just meet
week?
once a week.
Well, what if we go ahead and meet next week, and then the 19th or whatever date that was, like we talked about, we'd add in one more next week. because
I think this is a very, very nice proposal. We just say we are moving weekly now, and then we see January, because very much I love to do this, and I'm very much devoted and committed to this assignment of Ishwar, of sharing this knowledge. Even when I'm in India, it's not to say that I'm not going to find an hour to meet with you guys, because I'm a little bit of a fanatic. So don't take it for granted. So I like the idea. Let's move it on a weekly basis right away. If Dave agrees and if Ruth agrees, Carol agrees.
I don't know, I was just going to say that the day after Christmas doesn't work for me because I have family visiting, but if you guys
Well, I mean, people,
wanted to, but whatever.
that's always going to happen. You're not going to make
It is,
everything
it
a
is,
week.
Yeah.
But you can say weekly is just a constant thing, and doing that makes sense. And we just say we're doing it weekly, and we just have to support it. And and that's important that we support it, we show up.
Right.
And we have to agree to that. And I think I'm reading messages from Carolyn and from Ruth that saying weekly is good for them as well. So, so if we go next week, and let's go the 12th next week, we'll do it again. It's the same link. And then do you want to discuss, move on to different verses, or how do we do that, Arlinda?
Well, I think that we could move to the next 3 verses. I don't want to go too fast, especially now that we go weekly.
That sounds good.
So let's go the verse 3, verse 4, 5, and 6. So let's suggest people to read the book over those
9.
7, 8, 9.
6, 7, and 8. Yes. 7, 8, and 9. You're right.
7, 8, 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll send out an email to the group saying we're going weekly, and then if people want a recording of this, it'll be available. But just contact me, because we want to really encourage people to come to these sessions and not just listen. And we can do that as a backup, but it's strictly a backup.
Yeah.
Okay. And
okay. So I got a message from Ruth here that she says something. Maybe because I said it wrong. I said verse 4, 5, 6.
It's supposed to be 6. It's supposed to be 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, and then in your email you correct her. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do it on December.
The idea here is that we do our nididhyasana, we do our study home, and then we stimulate ourselves to go deep into those verses and commentaries, and we come up with some questions so that we can explore. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, good. Thank you very much. We'll honor the time, and we'll talk next week then.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Darlinda.
Okay. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnamya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.